Welcome to Kimsey Software's MetalTrax training series. This is video 6, setting up MetalTrax. Pricing by Kyle Kimsey.
This is the 6th video in the MetalTrax training series, video 6, setting up item pricing. As you remember under inventory control from video 5, under inventory control, items and categories, we had set up our items. We had set up 3 items. I had set up an angle item, which was homogeneous. I had set up a plate item, which was tagged, as well as a aluminum 6061 item that was a half-inch bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and show you how our pricing matrices work. Let's type in one of our items. Remember, I just start typing in the item, hit enter. I can choose our angle item. And this is our angle item. I'm going to edit this and I'm going to put in a cost over here. Let's say I put in 40 cents a pound. I'm going to come down to pricing. And under pricing, I have various different pricing levels. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up just a default pricing for our angle item. What this will be is if anybody walks in, walk-in traffic, or just default, if you were just doing a lookup on one of the inventory screens for default pricing, this would be it. So we're going to click on New. And what I'm going to do is it prompts me, it says, now are you going to price your values? Are they going to be unit prices, like a price per piece? Are you going to have a price over cost, where you have a cost and then like a little price bump, price over a certain cost? Are you going to do markup rates? Or are you going to do over margins? So we're going to do the most common one. We're going to set up margins. The price brace factor here is I'm going to do per foot. And then the price, this one is the base price factor, which is per foot. And this one is the price break factor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually change this to per pound. And then the price break factor is going to break based on how much feet the customer orders. So let me give you an example. So over here under sales order preferences, it's going to say your margins are based on, what we're going to do is we're going to base our margins based on this mill cost or replacement cost. You can also do a margin bump over average cost, or your last cost, or your mill cost, which is this cost, plus a fabrication cost. So let's do this. Let's do a mill cost. We're going to start with our price break factor. Always start with 0. And I'm going to say schedule A, B, C. As you notice here, we have an A, B, C. We also have D and E. These can be, if you're maybe setting up retail pricing, wholesale pricing, various different pricing columns you can set up. We're going to set up a general one. I'm going to say schedule A for if they buy anything over 0 feet, I'm going to give them a base margin bump over mill cost of, let's say, 25%. Now then what I'm going to do is if they order over 1,000 feet, I'm going to give them 22%. If they order over 5,000 feet, they get a bump over mill cost of 20%. So we will see this later in the sales order videos, but what that does is if a sales rep takes a call from a customer and they order 500 feet worth of material of angle, and they're just the general pricing, they're going to go down, the system's going to go down, and it's going to be between 0 and 1,000, so 0 and 999. They're going to get a 25% bump over the 40 cents per pound. Hopefully that makes sense. Now also the schedule B and C, I may set up a different column, and I may say for my schedule B customers, maybe they are maybe a special customers, where I'm going to say, all right, for them, I'm going to give them start with a 22% margin. Then I'm going to give them, if they do over 1,000 feet, I'm going to give them 20%. And if they do over 5,000, I'm going to give them an 18% margin bump. So we're going to set that up, and I'm going to save. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to leave this screen for just a minute, and I'm going to come over to the customer screen that we did in an earlier training session. Now if I pull up one of our customers, and in this case, if I knew the customer's name, I could type it in. If not, I could do a lookup. So let's say I'm doing the ABC Building Products. Again, remember, I could just do AB and hit enter, and it'll pull it up. At this point, let's look down and look over on the right-hand side. Notice pricing information. It says VA and 1. What this means is you can either have the method be V or F. In this case, it's variable in the pricing matrices. Start in column A, go to row 1. And then vary based on how much they buy, the price breaks. So in this customer says VAN1. Now let's go back to our item, look at our pricing, display. So that means they would start here, row 1, vary their schedule A, so they start with 25 and vary based on if they get their quantity price breaks. Now let's go back again to the customer screen. Sorry for jumping around, but this will hopefully help you make sense. Let's pull up that same customer, and if I was to edit it, and if I was to do a fixed at level column B and save it, what that would do is now I'm going to go back to the pricing. This would fix that customer, and they would go right here to column 1, and they'd get straight 22%. Everything for every time they ordered this item. So that's pricing bumps using margin. The last one, if we go back to the customer screen, is if I call up ABC. Let's say I'm going to edit this. I can also, if you notice down here, it says V, F, R, or D. If I do R, it prompts me for a rate. In that case, if I wanted to do a 20% rate, that's give them a 20%, and that would be on all items that they order. They do a 20% margin. And you can do that if you do rate, but remember, this doesn't look at the inventory pricing screens really at all. It just gives them a straight 20% charge. The last one, if you notice when I was up there, is at the bottom. It says D. D gives them, that means discount. So what you can do is have them go look at row A, column 1 for this item, in this case if they were customer was buying angle, it would look at this, and then it would give them a discount. So if I did a 5% discount, it would give them a 5% discount price. So those are the different pricing matrices. I'm going to change this back to V because that's the most common, and that's why we default to V. So our angle now is set up, the pricing, and that is just for your default pricing. Now the next tier of pricing is what we call customer type pricing. Now in this one, let's say if we come back to our customer and we pull up ABC. Remember when we set up the customer ABC, we said that they were an A-type customer. They're one of our better customers. So when you're in the pricing matrix in your item maintenance screen, sorry, jumping around again, but this makes sense. Well, this will make sense. On this same screen, I can click on N for new, and I can say, okay, that first pricing matrix was just general for any time anybody orders 1 by 1 by 1 inch angle. However, for my A-type customers, I am going to say, again, the base price factor is pound. We're still going to do a margin bump, but this time we're going to say these are our better customers. Our base price margin on them is 18, and their breaks are going to be a little different. They're going to get into 16, and they get all the way down for if they do 5,000 feet, excuse me, they may get a 14% margin bump. So that's the next level. Customer type pricing will override our general item ID pricing. So even though we're on the same screen, I still have that general item ID pricing in there. Now I've set up a customer type pricing. In other words, if I'm right here and I hit display, that's my general pricing. If I did customer type A and hit display, that's my customer type pricing. Remember, that will override your general pricing. The last type of pricing is called customer specific. Again, I can click new here, and I can say, however, my ABC company is special. They're not only an A customer, which they are, maybe they are even more of a special customer, and so I want to give them a straight bump, a margin. Let's say I'm not even going to worry about quantity breaks. I'm just going to give them a 12% margin. So what that means is no matter what, whenever they order this item, that company will get 12%. So that is how it's set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this just a bit. I'm going to say, let's give them 15% for our ABC cup pricing. Remember, our A-type pricing is 18, 16, and 14. Actually, let's change this to 15. That's the lowest price, let's say, we'll go. And then remember, on our general pricing, these are our pricing matrices. So that's how you set up pricing. You can also do the differences here. If you say unit prices, instead of these being margins, if you put 25 in here, it would be $25 a piece. If you did a markup rate, you'd want to use more markups like 1.3, 1.5. So just be careful as you're setting these up, because if you change these, we have had people come in here and they set up markup rates, but then they come down here and put 25 or 22 and they have huge markup rates on their sales orders. You can also make sure over here that if you do the markup, make sure you know whether you want to do it over mill cost, average cost, or last cost. The advantages on mill cost are you control these costs on mill cost. You can control these across the board by going into the item and typing in a mill cost. A lot of managers like to do it this way, because if the mill calls in, or if their supplier calls in and says you're going to have a bump across the board for all of your angle items, they can go in and bump up all their angle items on their mill cost, and then because they're doing pricing bumps over the mill cost, it will be reflected immediately on the sales order. If you do average cost, it's great. Again, that works. It just goes out and looks at your average cost. The only problem with that is if you have no inventory in, then you wouldn't want to bump up over 0. But you can set the system where if there's no inventory, you can still bump up over mill cost. And of course, last cost is also very effective, but if you're doing a margin over last cost and you've got a really good deal on your purchase orders, you have to be careful that you're not doing a margin over a cost that is just a one-time deal that your sales reps may not be making as much money if they mark up over that last cost. So those are your setup for your pricing. We also wanted to show you, the last thing we wanted to show you on pricing is under your inventory, over on the right-hand side, we have a change cost utility. You notice this change mill cost utility. Now this is nice because I can come in here and for a category, so maybe for one of my categories, maybe for my hot rolled angle category, I'm going to list all my items and I'm going to change all my items and bump them up. So I could say, let's do a percentage change of a 2% bump and increase it across the board, and it will increase all items that you select. So it makes it really easy for managers to manage their pricing. And we will cover this later. I just, in our change mill cost training session, but I just wanted to show you right now we don't have very many items in there, but we will as we bring in more items. And so that is your pricing training session. Please continue to watch other videos or watch previous ones. If anything in here we reference that you don't recognize, that doesn't make sense to you, go back to our other videos. Thank you for your time.